Well, hey, friends, welcome to Q on Q. We're glad you're with us this week. Well, if you are listening when this episode first airs, we are nearly a month into the new year, and we are in the final part of a multi part series on focus in the new year. If you're listening to us for the first time with this episode, welcome, and let me catch you up to speed a little bit on what we've been talking about. It came about because my word for 2025 is the word focus. I came to that word after lots of thought and prayer and reflecting about all the things that seem to pull us off track. The things and experiences and people and situations that take us off course and stop us from achieving our objectives and goals. So, my plan for 2025 is to focus on key areas that can help me live out my faith in practical and meaningful ways. In the first few weeks, we talked about focusing on our priorities and our relationships. And this week, I want to talk about focusing on the past, the present, and the future. And I want to start with these questions. What can the past teach us? What should we look forward to in the future? And why should we focus on the present while keeping an eye on both the past and the future? It's a delicate balance, but one that can transform our lives when done intentionally. I have to admit, as we get started today, that this one was a hard one for me. I have a lot of personal things that I'm going to be sharing with you later on. But let's start with this thought. How often do we let our minds wander, replaying what's behind us or worrying about what's ahead? In Matthew 6:34, Jesus says this, "Therefore do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own." I hear that verse isolated by itself so many times, and I think it's important always for us to look at a whole chapter to truly understand a verse and its magnitude. This entire passage is a part of the Sermon on the Mount, and one of the few parts of the Bible that is entirely the words of Christ directly. It's probably one of the most quoted and most referred to sections for what you could call moral living. This verse is a reminder that God calls us to live fully in the here and now. How often do we get caught up in what might happen tomorrow or what happened yesterday, neglecting the beauty and purpose of today? Jesus wasn't saying that the future doesn't matter or that the past has no value. Instead, he's inviting us to live fully in the moment, trusting that God is at work in all three: our past, our present, and our future. Living in the present means embracing the moment we're in. It's the little things: the morning sunlight streaming through your window, the laughter of a child, the stillness in prayer, the things where we often find God's presence most tangibly. But being present doesn't mean ignoring the past or the future. It means letting them inform our actions today without letting them control us. It's about finding gratitude in the moment, no matter how small. 1 Thessalonians 5:18 encourages us to give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. This doesn't mean every moment will feel or will be perfect, but even in the chaos, there's beauty in staying present. When we're mindful, we notice God's fingerprints all around us in a conversation, in a small success, or in an unexpected blessing. Living in the present means engaging with the life that's unfolding right in front of us with purpose and intention. It's about grounding ourselves in today, recognizing its unique opportunities, and finding God's presence in the here and now. One of the most powerful examples of this comes from the story of Mary and Martha in Luke 10. While Martha was distracted by all the preparations, Mary chose to sit at the feet of Jesus and listen. When Martha complained, Jesus said, "You're worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better." The story reminds us that being present isn't about neglecting our responsibilities. It's about knowing when to pause, to breathe, and to focus on what truly matters in the moment. So often we're physically present, but mentally we're somewhere else. Maybe we're rehashing a conversation from yesterday or crafting a to-do list for tomorrow. And while it's important to remember things and to plan for what's ahead, it's when we get literally consumed by what was or what might be that we rob ourselves of the beauty and the blessings of what is. I think there are some practical things we can do and focus on to make sure we're living in the present. First, we need to be grateful. Gratitude anchors us in the now. When we pause to thank God for the little things, a kind word, a sunrise, or even a meal, we shift our focus from what's lacking to what's already abundant. We also need to make sure we take time to slow down. In our fast paced world, slowing down can be really counterintuitive. Rest isn't just about physical renewal, it's about reconnecting with God and recentering our focus. Slowing down might not look like what you're thinking it looks like, and it may look different for everyone. Could be something as simple as taking a walk without your phone, eating a meal without multitasking, or setting aside time to pray and reflect. These moments help us tune in to what God is doing right now. We also don't want to forget to be fully present with the people right in front of us. One of the best ways to live in the present is by giving others our full attention. When we're with family, friends, or coworkers, we should strive to be all there. Put down the phone, make eye contact, and truly listen. When we focus on others, we build deeper connections. And of course, living in the present requires trust. Trust that God is already working in your future so you don't have to. When we trust God's plan, we can stop striving to control every detail and instead focus on being faithful with what's right in front of us. Think of the present moment as sacred ground. It's the only time you truly have. The past is gone. The future isn't promised to any of us, but this moment, right now, this heartbeat, this breath, it's a gift from God. Now, let's talk about looking to the past. You heard me just say we shouldn't dwell there. Well, the Bible frequently reminds us of the importance of remembering some of the past, especially what God has done. Reflection on the past can be a powerful source of gratitude and wisdom, and it's through looking back that we can see how far God has brought us. We can learn from our experiences and find hope for what lies ahead. But here's the key: don't live in the past. Living in the past can be limiting because it prevents you from fully engaging with the present and from building a better future. Dwelling on regrets, mistakes, or even former glories can prevent us from what we have right in front of us today. Instead, let the past be a foundation that supports you, not an anchor that holds you back. There's no doubt that the past is a powerful teacher. It's a tapestry of experiences, decisions, and moments, both good and bad, that shape who we are today. But while the past is a foundation, it's not meant to be a place where we dwell indefinitely. When we look back, we gain wisdom. Think of King David. Before he faced Goliath, David reflected on how God had delivered him in the past. The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine. David didn't let fear paralyze him because he trusted God's track record. We too can face today's challenges by remembering how God has guided us through the trials of yesterday. But here's the key: learning from the past doesn't mean carrying its weight with us. Mistakes, regrets, or pain can anchor us down if we let them. Obsessing over the past can trap you in a loop of regret, nostalgia, or longing, making it hard to move forward or evolve as a person. That's why it's important to embrace grace. The old is gone, the new is here. We have all been offered freedom from the burdens of the past so we can move forward in confidence. And while the past is rich with lessons, it can also become a stumbling block if we let it. Sometimes we cling to past mistakes or missed opportunities, replaying them over and over in our minds. Other times we idolize the past, longing for the good old days instead of embracing the opportunities God has for us literally right now. For most of us, we can celebrate things of the past. Think about milestones, answered prayers, moments of growth. It's a good thing to remember and cherish those memories, but when we overly glorify the past, when we hang on to too much or hang on to those good old days or what we had before, we risk missing out on what God is doing in the present and what He's preparing for a future. Growth happens when you learn from the past, but apply those lessons to present and future decisions. Focusing solely on past mistakes or successes can keep you from growing in the present. The past is a place to visit, not a place to live, especially when we're looking for reminders of grace and faithfulness. It's in those visits that we can find peace and assurance for today. And what about the future? Planning for the future is wise and necessary, but it should always be held in partnership with God's will. It's good to dream, set goals, and prepare diligently, but we need to leave room for guidance. The future is full of promise and potential, but it's also unknown. It can be exciting and daunting at the same time. As believers, we're called to prepare for the future with faith, hope, and trust in God's plan. Planning for the future is a good and wise practice. Setting goals, saving resources, and strategizing are ways to steward what we've been given and what has been trusted to us. But we need to keep our faith and our values at the core of our planning. When we plan with faith, we hold our goals loosely, allowing space for God to adjust, redirect, or transform them into something greater than we could ever imagine. Focusing on the future also means cultivating hope. Hope isn't just wishful thinking, it's anchored in the character of God. It's trusting that His promises are true even when we can't see the full picture yet. One of the biggest challenges in focusing on the future is navigating uncertainty. We want guarantees, but faith often calls us to step out into the unknown. Most of us are probably familiar with the verse in Hebrews that defines faith as confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. God often calls us to trust Him with the details that we can't see. When fear or anxiety about the future creeps in, we can lean on His assurance to us. There's a delicate balance between preparing for the future and surrendering it to God. We do our part, working diligently, seeking wisdom, and making thoughtful decisions, but we leave the outcomes to Him. Preparing for the future means keeping an eternal perspective. While it's important to plan for next week, next month, or next year, our ultimate hope is in the life to come. When you think about your future, do you ever keep your focus there and miss what is happening right in front of you? Yes, God has a wonderful future plan for each of us when we follow where He's leading us, but focusing solely on the future can lead to anxiety, discontent, and neglect of the present. This has been something that's been a delicate balance for me over the past year and something that I feel God is really working on with me. For a while, I felt a stirring in me that God might be calling me away into something new. For a long time, I didn't know what that was, and I can't say I'm completely certain yet. I started to see some signs and really strongly felt what was going to be something pretty quickly happening and something that would take me away from full-time teaching into something else, maybe curriculum development, composing, instructional design, writing music. I don't know. I had people contact me about open job opportunities, and I actually reached out of my comfort zone and applied for some and had an interview, but nothing materialized. I started to get frustrated. I asked God, if you're really preparing me for something else and these things seem to be dropping in my lap, why aren't they working out? And while I'm not 100% sure there still isn't something out there for me, I'm beginning to be convinced that what God was really doing was helping me appreciate where I am now and focus on the present. I have a great job with great kids, and I love what I do, and I have great colleagues, and I have the opportunity to do a lot of things in addition to it, like help lead worship at church, work as a news reporter for Christian radio, I write music, make this podcast, among other things. For so many months, I looked at what was coming. I was looking for the what's next when I wasn't even certain that something next was just around the corner. I put so much time and energy into moving into something new when, to be honest, most of the inspiration for it came from me and me alone. I've always believed God is calling you into something new. It's going to be abundantly clear. He'll speak it to you, and you'll get confirmation from so many others that it will be undeniable. I've realized that spending so much time focusing on the what's next when God isn't ready for me to go there can steal the joy of what's right in front of me. the here and now, whether it's a moment with my family or a lesson with my students, is where life is actually happening. And I'm learning that being fully present not only deepens my relationships, but also brings a richness to the everyday that I might have overlooked before. When our minds are consumed with what might happen, we risk missing the blessings and opportunities of what is happening right now. Obsessing over the future can cause us to overlook the relationships, responsibilities, and moments that God has placed before us today. While planning and dreaming are important, they must be balanced with trust in God's timing and a heart anchored in the present. Balancing these three things, the past, the present, and the future, requires trust. Trust that God is the author of your story, weaving each moment together for His glory and your good. When we focus on the present while learning from the past and preparing for the future, we'll be able to live with a sense of peace and purpose. So, how do we actually do that? Here's a couple quick thoughts. First, practice gratitude daily. Take a moment each day to thank God for something in your life right now. Gratitude anchors us in the present and helps us see God's hand at work. Second, reflect intentionally. Set aside time to look back on what you've learned from the past without getting stuck there. Use those lessons to guide your decisions today. And third, plan prayerfully. Commit your future plans to God. Ask for His wisdom and guidance and be open to His leading, even if it takes you in unexpected directions. Several weeks back, as I was preparing for the first in this series, I came across this quote from pastor and author Louis Giglio that has stuck with me. And I think it's so very appropriate and impactful as we focus in 2025. He said this: "In our fast-paced, multitasking world, it can be easy, even natural, to think 7 steps ahead, to always be projecting far out scenarios and mental models of what might happen. If we spend too much time hanging around the what ifs, the toxicity of worry begins to poison our hearts and minds. You can't fixate so much on the ideas of tomorrow that you cease living in the realities of today. God puts things into your hands according to your ability and His power to work in and through you. If He's entrusted it to you, you can carry it. If He's calling you to it, He will be faithful and help you through it. If He's placed it in your hands, you don't need to worry about where it will end up. You just need to prepare, plan, and stay ready, because the King will come back for the King's things." Here's a thought to take with you this week. Imagine your past is a rearview mirror. It's there to give you perspective, but if you stare at it too long, you'll miss what's happening on the road ahead, and you'll probably crash. Instead, glance back when you need to. Thank God for the lessons learned, and keep moving forward. As you reflect on your past this week, ask yourself, what moments can I celebrate, and what lessons have shaped me? Living in the present isn't about ignoring the past or forgetting the future. It's about trusting God enough to show up fully for today. This week, when you feel your mind drifting to the what ifs or the if onlys, gently bring it back to the what now. You'll find peace, purpose, and presence right here, right now. Well, friends, that wraps up our series on focus in the new year. I hope that this conversation has sparked some thoughts or insight for you. If so, I'd love if you would take the opportunity to share this with others. If it has made an impact on you, spread it out there on your socials. Let others know what inspirational message this has been for you. And I would appreciate if you get that word out as we spread the podcast as we get into 2025. And I'd love to hear from you. I would love to hear how this has impacted you and how your focus is going in the new year. Don't forget, you can always reach out to us through Facebook or Instagram at Q on Q. Or if you go to our website, qonq.com, there is a connection that you can get right to us there through the website. Let's keep this dialogue going as we focus on creating a purposeful and meaningful year ahead. Well, until we're together again, stay focused and stay true to what matters most. And by trusting God with our past, walking faithfully in the present, and believing in His promises for the future, May we find true peace and purpose in every moment. As always, I really do appreciate you tuning in this week. We'll see you back here next time, and we'll have more for you on Q.